Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. I am your host and beat reporter, John Shipley, and I've been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019. And we are continuing to march through yet another offseason together. You can find us on social media such as Facebook and Twitter at Jaguars on SI. And you can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. Today's episode, we are going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars that are set to enter contract years in 2025. The Jaguars didn't really have many, high-profile players entering this past free agency period. They had Andre Cisco, Brandon Sheriff, who's still unsigned, Mac Jones, Luke Farrell. They simply didn't have many players who were guys who were going to break the bank or who they absolutely had to have back. They made that clear when they haven't re-signed a single one of their free agents. The only team in the NFL this year to do so. That, as we've talked about before, that says to me mostly just how they viewed this internal free agent class. Like I said, not a lot of guys you absolutely had to bring back. Most of the guys I thought had a chance to come back were like the bottom of the roster depth types, special teams players, Caleb Johnson, Tim Jones, Blake Hance, etc. Obviously, Tim Jones signed Minnesota. Blake Hance signed with the Titans. I believe Caleb Johnson is still unsigned, but these were areas that I thought, if they're going to bring anybody back, those are the ones. With that said, they have a much, much deeper group of guys who are set to enter contract years this year. Now, we'll start off with two guys who are kind of technicalities right now. It's Trayvon Walker and Devin Lloyd, first-round picks in the 2022 NFL Draft. The Jaguars have until May 1st to pick up their fifth-year options or to decline them. If they pick them up, then they will be on the books for 2026. The Jaguars, of course, could still enter in contract negotiations with them and kind of make that a moot point. We saw them do that, in previous years. Trevor Lawrence, they picked up his fifth-year option last April, ended up extending him in June. So you can see there's at least a path to use the fifth-year option as a vehicle to ensure, the players don't go anywhere. If they don't pick up the fifth-year option, then they are entering the last year of their rookie deal. I feel like it's kind of a consensus thought that they will pick up Trayvon Walker's fifth-year option, and we'll see what they do, obviously, with Devin Lloyd's. Running back Travis Etienne, they picked up his fifth-year option along with Trevor's last year. He's entering his contract year in 2025. Former first-round pick and back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher. It really feels like he needs a big year to return in 2026. Needs to produce, much more like he did in 2022 than he did in 2024. Obviously, he dealt with a lot of injuries last year. The offensive line was clearly, an issue in the running game as well. So I wouldn't put all of his 2024 issues necessarily on him. But if he has a year like he did last year or a year that resembles it, then you'd have to think, that's an area where moving forward, they're like, okay, we're going to look in a different direction. So we will see what happens with Travis Etienne, but he is a big player entering his contract season. They also have De'Ami Brown, who they signed to a one-year, $10 million deal. He kind of has him, by the huevos. If he has a good year, he can really cash in next year in free agency. That's why a lot of teams, want to sign guys to 2-year deals because it at least gives the team some leverage. But he wanted a 1-year deal. He got it. 3 core special teams guys, and Andrew Wingard, Logan Cook, and Daniel Thomas are all set to be free agents. Logan Cook's one of the best punters in the NFL. You have to imagine, especially with Heath Farwell's influence, that he's a guy they want back. Andrew Wingard has been a core special teams guy and a core backup on defense, one of the top backups on defense the last couple of years. Every coaching staff they get, it was Doug Marone's coaching staff first, then Urban Meyer's, then Doug Peterson's. They love Andrew Wingard. So It wouldn't shock me if this next coaching staff loves Andrew Wing. They just love the way he plays, his energy, his passion, the way he leads, his effort level. So I fully expect him to endear himself to another coaching staff. Daniel Thomas has been one of their best special teamers. They brought him back last offseason. We'll see. They've kind of overturned some of their special teams already this year, so we'll see if they continue to do that next year as they draft cheaper talent, etc. Luke Fortner, Chad Muma, and Monteric Brown, draft picks from the 2022 draft. Fortner lost his job last year to Mitch Morse. They signed Robert Hainsey this year, so he's not getting it. Chad Muma's been a good special teamer, but just hasn't really found a role consistently on defense. Buster Brown is a guy I think they'd like to probably bring back on cheap because he's somebody who has been a day 3 pick who became a success story. He's proven he can go in there and play well as a starter. Even if they don't view him as a starter, he's a good guy to have on the roster. There's also offensive lineman Fred Johnson, who they signed to a 1-year deal, offensive lineman Dennis Daly, and quarterback John Walford. Fred Johnson, I think if he has a good year, he's somebody who's going to be able to give it a chance, I think, to compete for a swing tackle spot. If they face injuries and he plays well, I think he could set himself up well for free agency next season.